Morning, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Leslie. If you haven't been here before, you've wandered across my little corner of the internet. Today is just going to be a little touch of teaching, chatting, and just relaxing. I could not believe it. I had a great weekend, okay? And then it never got bad, but on Sunday, it started to snow a little. No big deal. Then yesterday, it started to snow. And it snowed some more. And then it snowed some more. And well, truth be told, this is the most snow we've had all winter. It's not a lot, don't get me wrong. Nobody's going to be building igloos or anything. But we got snow. So I have a beautiful view out my window, which I wonder, can I share it on here? Because I was having connection issues. And so I could not share it on my computer. But I'm wondering if I can give you guys a quick look at what we are seeing out our window today. Like I said, this is the most snow we've had all winter. If you look kind of at the V point there, down in the little V, tip of the V, is actually where the lake is. And when it's nice out, we can see a bit of the water there. And that would be right in here. So we have a beautiful view. We're very fortunate. But yeah, that was what the weekend got us. Kind of a surprise. We are not going to complain, however, because, we've had no snow in BC. It gets a lot of forest fires in the summer from how dry and hot it is. And so the more moisture we get in the winter, the more it helps. So, a little bit of snow never hurt no one. Well, guys, let's go down below and have a look at what we're playing with today. Glasses would help tremendously. So today, sorry, I've got a very dry throat. Nothing like a good cup of tea. Today we are playing with the Pink and Main kit that came in November last year, and it was called the Bright Side. I did what I've been doing quite a bit of. I just went, I pulled a kit here, I pulled a kit there, and here we go. So we are playing with geometrics today, and this paper is awesome. Let me just grab one so that I can show you. It is nice and thick. They are all like that. You get 2 of each sheet, which is more than plenty, and all kinds of designs. I do love their papers. Sometimes, like with this one, throws me off a little because it might not necessarily be something I'd pick. Guys, no fighting over there. Be good puppies. It's not necessarily something I would pick from, like, going to the craft store. But, it does not hurt. And then I used the embossing folder that came with it. It's called Sparkles. And I embossed for one of my cards. You'll see that. Guys, I then went into one of my kits from January of 2025, and it was from it came from, where did this one come from? The clear stamp of the month, Nature's Dance. There we go. So it's a Spellbinders Club one, and we're going to use 2 of the verses from that. Then we hop back over to this kit and we're using one of the verses from the stamps from this kit, which is On My Mind. So that is awesome. We are also using the die. And Nature's Dance. Those ones are spellbinders. I had to use it in order to cut out the sentiments. So we're all set up there. You will see another item that I will be using here. But let's get started. And what I wanted to do, I said that we were going to do something that hasn't been done in my craft room in a while, craft studio, whatever we're calling it. People say I have a studio. And that is embossing. That's right, guys. I have not embossed in a long time, and I have not done it as of yet on this channel. So here we go. We have our paper selected. This is the die that I will need. I just grab my brush over here and I just brush my paper off so there's no tag-alongs, and then I swipe it with an embossing pouch so that the embossing powder only sticks to my paper. Everything else, any extra embossing powder, I'll be able to dust away before I heat it up, okay? And that's a very important step. Now, I will tell you, I did make this embossing pouch. It is just a piece of material stitched at either side, and inside is a bit of cornstarch, and it works like a dream. Okay, so now what we want to do is use our stamp, and I already have it on my stamping platform. So I will move it over here. I will realign it right there. This is a sticky platform. Okay. One moment, please. Sorry, the animals were getting a little rambunctious. So I have it lined up, as you can see. And now we are going to use some clear embossing and watermark ink pad to emboss with, and it's from Spellbinders, okay? But I know that Rangers or Hero Arts, and some of them make them. There's all kinds. And here's where my little embossing tip comes in. If you have some embossing powder that is clear, so it's going to go on clear, you can use any ink to emboss with. So if you just want to try it and see if you like doing it, my suggestion is to get a little bit of clear and use any of your ink pads to stamp, and then the clear to emboss over the top, and that will tell you if this is something you want to carry on with. Now, my next tip is do this stamping a couple of times. And why do I say that? Because if you're not using a colored cardstock, it can be hard to see if you got it as much as you want or you think you did. Like, I cannot see that at all. So I have no way of knowing, so I like to do it 2 or 3 good times, sometimes 4, like now, depending on how detailed my stamp is. I have done this with full-size stamps and used them as backgrounds. It turns out beautiful. I have also embossed in a colored or non-colored emboss, and gone ahead and used it to color with watercolor. It holds it quite nicely. So now we are done with this one. Okay, and I am just going to remove this stamp because we will be using our platform again. I will set it there. Now, in order for this to come out the way that I like, I need a paper, any piece of paper. And what I am going to do is just take my black embossing powder here, and I'm going to pour it right over top, and that is why I use the paper. Okay, and if you have extra hanging around like that, just take yourself a little paintbrush and brush it off. That is why we powdered, right? In order to get those extras off. Now, there's two schools in the next step that I do. Some say do not do it. When I first took up embossing, I was taught to do it, and it has worked fine for me. So the choice is yours. I like to take it just over to the side and give a little blow across it, just so that I can make sure that all the extras are gone. Okay. And I think we are good. Now, what I do is I just go ahead. Ooh, excuse me. Ooh, thought I was going to sneeze there for a minute. I grab a pair of tweezers, set them ready to go, and put my embossing powder away, because of course we are waste not, want not. And guys, doing it this way, I have had this embossing powder now for years. In fact, it's been well over 15 years. That's how little embossing powder is used to make our designs, and as long as we're putting it away, it's well worth its weight in gold, as they say. So there we go. I'll just set that aside. I am just going to make sure that I am rid of this embossing powder here. There we go. I love this little hand vacuum, by the way. If you've never used one, it was a great addition to my craft room. Little ladybug just goes around, picks up all the glitter and embossing powders. So now I hold it like this only because it does get hot. I turn this on for just a few seconds. Sorry about the noise. And I just take this and I start to melt. And you'll know because it gets darker as it melts. I guess not darker, actually, more solid. I think we are done. Let me give it. Oh no, it didn't melt at all. Well, what is going on there? That is not good. What is going on? Let me see. Okay, guys, I have worked on what happened, and we are going to try our heat emboss again. So, to tell you, long story short, of course, today was the day that my embossing heat gun decided to die, which is just fine. I stole my husband's heat gun. Is it a little overkill? Of course, but it happens, and we will just move on with our day. So we have replaced our stamp onto another section of cardstock. I will powder and set that aside, and let's do some heat embossing. And this is the joys of crafting. I used to cut these parts out, but I'm not anymore. You need to see the real life situations that happen. They happen if you've been crafting for 15 minutes or 15 years. Or in my case, my daughter is 38, so probably 40 years, because I started crafting before my children were born. It does not make me an expert by any means, because I find that the crafting world is like electronics world in that everything changes overnight. We get new supplies, we get new methods, we get new, rules, as I don't like to call them rules, but new rules. Do this, but don't do this, because this could be dangerous. So there we go. We have gotten that onto our cardstock. I will pull this off, and we will say a prayer, quite literally, that this will work. I am just going to trim some of the excess here so I don't have quite such a big piece to deal with. Now I am going back to my paper, and I am going to go ahead and use the black. So here we go, just like so. And I will tell you, embossing powder reminds me of flour in that it gets everywhere. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be there. You didn't go near that area. But wow. I suggest strongly no sneezing while embossing. Oh, I didn't use enough powder, I don't think. But that's okay. We'll work with it. There we go. I didn't sprinkle enough from my powder bag. Plenty of embossing powder, not enough of the embossing bag to get things off easy, but that's okay. I can live with that. Alrighty, so now we are done embossing, and just like before, I am going to empty it out. Just like so. I'm going to put the lid on it. Going to cover this, and away we go. Really want to use this when I am holding it this time, because this gets extremely hot. We're going heavy duty. And in real life, you can actually see it melting. I do it from both sides. not just one. And it will look solid and a little bit shiny when it's done. You can definitely tell that it's melted. And there we go. Now there is one little spot that got missed. So I am just going to grab a fine tip pen and I'm just going to replace it. And that way it doesn't show. Just a little note to lift your spirits. And it should be dry now. I see a little bit right there. There we go. Now I am just going to line this up. It is the die for this verse. Get it nicely lined up. Now normally I would do more than one at a time. I would have stamped the whole selection and then gone ahead and just used the one that I wanted. But I won't be embossing them all. So doing that would not have been a benefit at this time. Embossing ink, you want to be sure to go ahead and to emboss and use. I do not believe that we can emboss it and then set it aside to use like in a couple of weeks or a month. I think once it's dry, right? So there we go. We have now used that, and we now have our sentiment. So we are good to go with that one. Oof, I'm going to set this down here. I touched it once by accident. You know, you get distracted doing what you're doing. And wow. Don't want to be pulling that trick again. So here we are. We are going to do this card right here. And it will be a 4¼ by 5½. And then each layer is a quarter smaller. So this one would be 4 by 5¼ etc., etc., etc. And this is the one where we used our embossing mat. There we go. So let's get it on, and then we can do the next one. Oops. Oh dear, how did I lose my... Hold on guys, missing glue gun. Okay, the lost is found and we can carry on. It's just a fine tip glue gun, so what I like about it is the squeeze trigger, because my hands are not what they used to be, unfortunately. And squeezing can be a bit difficult, but this makes it so much nicer. So there we go. Now, could I have done this with a glue sheet attached to the back? Yes, of course I could, but I like to have some fudge time to make sure that I get it aligned where I want it. So, glue gun it is. Now, the next layer would be a 3.75 by 5, but cut down. Okay, I cut it down because I am going to be using these gems. And these are the Bright Side gems. And they go with the design on our embossing folder. So the way I worked this was I lined it all up, and then I cut off just a section. I wasn't fussy or anything. I found my middle and I just went from there. I didn't take a lot of time to think about it. I just made sure that I knew where to realign this piece when I put it back today. Some of you ask why I like to get my stuff ready beforehand. And the simple answer is the fact that so many of you have already watched a lot of YouTube on how to do different things. So unless I am doing something that I feel isn't shown very often, what is the use of me showing you taking a die and running it through a machine, right? You've seen it probably 50,000 times. So there we go. Make sure to keep some good pressure on this just for a minute or two, because remember that you're gluing to your embossing. And sometimes that can make it just a little bit tricky. So far, this is what we have for the front of our card. Now, what I want to do is open this, and we are going to go ahead and we are going to grab some of these gems. And where I see a little diamond on here, whoops, too much, right there, I'm going to place a gem. Are they pre-glued? Yes. Would they stay on? Probably, but I am giving this to someone where I have to put it in the mail. So I just want to be on the sure side. I love that these gems coordinate so well with our embossing folder. It just gives us another layer that we can play with, right? I'm going to go with a small gem on that one. I think I'll make it the green. I had the granddaughter down here playing over the weekend, as we do when she doesn't have school. And wowzers, you know. She puts things away for me. And then it takes me a few days or more just to figure out where she put them. It's quite fun. I'm going to put one here of the darker orange. You know, I never thought, I'd be one to use geometric shapes. They just did not call to me. But since I make for you guys, and since, you know, I had this kit, I thought it's time to do something about it. Let's get our geometrics out and use them. And it's definitely been an interesting experience. So, there we go. Now, if you wanted this to say be a man's card, it really truly could, in that you don't have to use the flower pattern paper. Where did the paper pad go? You could use something like this, or like this, or any one of these ones that don't have the flowers, you could use as a men's card, right? And you could do something very similar to this. So here is how it turned out. Am I putting a sentiment on it? The answer is no, absolutely not. I am not sure if I will use this for a how you doing, happy birthday, just a simple note. So I will leave it just as it is. And when I go to do it, I will use a piece of probably a pinky or a red on the inside to write my sentiment on. Okay? So there we go. I will probably end up putting a sentiment on the front when I decide what kind of card I want it to be, and I will probably place it right in the middle. So that is our first card done. And now comes the one I'm most excited about, and that is this one. Whoops, stay. That is our horizontal step die. I love this. If you've never done these, do not be intimidated. All instructions on how to fold them are on the back. So of course, mountain fold is up and valley fold is down, right? And that is what you end up with. I love this. And we will be using all the decorative pieces except for hello that came with it, okay? So just let me set this out of my way. And here we go. I'll get all my pieces over here. Now I do have right here an extra piece that I wanted to show you, and that is this one. Let me grab this. When you get this, you get two kinds of patterns for the side step. Right there, this little side step. One is the tulip, and the other is the leaf. So you can pick and choose, or you can do one on each side. I have chosen at this time to do the tulip. And then for the middle, we have this piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this piece glued down just so that it has time to adhere while I do the other smaller pieces. I hope you guys like cards like this. Of course, you do not have to get this particular step card from Pink and Me. You could create your own with dimensions that you've gotten online. There are ways to do it without dies. You could buy it off of many creators out there, like Spellbinders, like Stamps of Life, like some of the unknown, less known creators off of Amazon. You know, there's ways. So there we go. We're going to place this one down. And in a moment, I will show you the detail. I just need a moment to get it all centered. Oh, there we go. Clean up any seepage. Look at the detail. They have even done all the stitching for us around the edges. I love that. So we've got that one together. Let's move on to these two. And these were just simple cut it out dies. Nothing fancy going on here. Just a simple cutout. Oh, yeah. Just one sec. I need to get this out of my hands before I show you. Okay. Actually, I'll glue both of these down and then I'll show you. I love gluing strips like this to give detail because you just place them against your table and that lines them up quite nicely. And, whoops, this one. And these once again have all the stitch detail along the side. If you wanted, you could take a pen and you could definitely detail that highlighting. Or highlight that detailing, I'm sorry. So let's get this back on here. Alrighty, now I will show you this. Using the same tulip die, I took it. Actually, no, I am wrong. I did not use the tulip die, but I will explain it the same way. Using this flower die right here, I added this piece. So this was the outside, this was the inside. And that is how I resulted in this. If you don't add these pieces with the cut lines, you're going to get this. Just the design cut as a border. So this alone, this bar right here, is simply a border. But you add this bar and it cuts out. Okay, that's the easiest way I can explain it. So let's get our card put together as best as we can here. Of course, tape runner would work also. And you just push it right into the bottom. Okay? You don't have to go to the very bottom if you don't want to, but I find it makes it easy to line up. And then I just push on it for a second or two, just to be sure that we have it all lined up. And I go to the other side, repeat the same step. I used to think stepping cards like this would be scary, but they really aren't because they come with everything you need. And even if they didn't, I could look up a step card that I wanted to base mine on and use what I have on hand, right? Lots of ideas for these step cards, so don't be scared to make use of them, okay? Now what I'm doing is just gluing the middle. And this is why I did not use tape runner or glue sheets because I wanted time to play with it and make sure it was where I wanted it to be. Okay, I might need to put a bit more under there just to make sure that it's going to stick. There we go. Now I know it will. So far this is what we have. Okay, and now I have chosen, let's just set that over there. I'm going to put this right on here. If you don't put your cap back on this particular one, it will dry out into the nozzle. Keep that in mind. Okay, so now I have this strip, which would go across the bottom. Okay, and I have chosen to do another sentiment on it. Okay, and that sentiment will be a birthday greeting. And it is a long strip one, so it works perfectly on here. Okay. So I want to count. Whoops. I need to turn it this way so I can see my wording. Sorry, guys. 1, 2, 3. I use the stitch marks 1, 2, 3 that they have kindly provided to line up my stamp where I want it. It works perfectly that way. Now make sure it's stuck down, and I'm just going to place some of this pink tape, which will not damage the cardstock, at either end because my sticky pad needs to be cleaned and will lift during stamping. I'm just using some basic Memento black ink here. So let's ink us up. Whew. I think we need to rejuice this ink pad. But this, my friends, is why we own a stamping platform, because we can stamp more than once and know it's going to line up properly. Although, no, I'm going to do it one more time. There's a couple of spots there that I want to be sure get some good ink on them. Go. Give it another good rub. There we go. You will find on my bad days that I do use my pressure rubber thingy to add extra pressure when my hands are not as good as I want them to be when they're a little achy. Now I'm going to put my cover back over top of the sticky, and I'm going to set it aside to go to the washing station to be cleaned up. So now what we have done is we've created the sentiment strip for the bottom. And really, guys, it's that easy. Some of you would say that I should move faster, but you know what? When I'm crafting, if I'm not on a timeline because it's in order or something, I just relax and enjoy the process. This is my escape, my happy place. Okay, let's push that down, and then I'll show you what happens with this piece. It's kind of an extra idea that I saw online and wanted to carry through on. So there we go. Now, my problem is always what to do with the inside of the step card, right? I want it to look just as pretty as the outside. So I found this idea online where they took the strip and they cut a border. Then I am adding one more spot to mine. I'm going to add my sentiment here. Or no, that's the wrong sentiment. Oops, 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 oops. I am not. I will. See, good thing I double checked myself. I will go ahead and add a sentiment later. Now this piece of cardstock measured in at 3 by 5 1/4. So the border fit perfectly for it. And here we go. We're just going to put it down in here. It gives some nice contrast to the white while at the same time bringing in some color from the front. And there we go, guys. We now have our second card complete. We have chosen to do a birthday card, and we have chosen to do just a whatever it turns out to be type of card, right? Make sure I got that right side up. All using basically the same kit with a die, a couple of dies pulled in for the sentiments. It was that easy, that simple. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope that if you've never tried embossing, you go ahead and do so. It makes it easy, it makes it stand out, and adds just a touch of something to your card. I will probably find a different sentiment, emboss it, and put it on the inside of this one. Just because I like the idea of it. And sorry for the mistake. I will keep this sentiment that we did do with the embossing for a different project. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your week. And I will see you on Friday in whatever comes next. Bye.